Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Blue Ribbon Lounge podcast.
Welcome back to the lounge.
We are deep beneath the Earth's crust, and I am Matt Nicky.
And I'm Dave.
And we got a special guest here with us. We're so happy to bring in our friend Brian, and he's going to be doing the podcast with us today.
Yes, on this will actually be on the 4th of July. It should come out.
Yeah, so Independence Day. Why don't you say hey to everybody, Dave? Or Brian.
Hey, everybody. This is Brian coming to you live from the Blue Ribbon Lounge, where it's really nice and cozy.
Yeah, it's pretty nice in here. The weather outside, it's a little warm. Not too terrible, though.
It wasn't bad. It started to spike a little bit this afternoon.
Yeah.
Getting up in the 80s.
But, this will be out on the 4th of July, so happy Independence Day, everybody. Let's pay our respects to Will Smith, defending the world from aliens.
I was just watching it before I left.
Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
Speaking of ahs and ums.
He can really ramble on. Dinosaurs and aliens, Jeff Goldblum really spiked it down for the cryptids.
He's the full spectrum of it all.
Yeah, definitely. Good looks, smart, funny.
Hilarious.
But we normally start, Brian, with a little out and about. We do have some beers here, if we want to crack those first.
Whoa.
Yes. This is River Life from Adventurous Brewing.
Yeah, I hadn't been to Adventurous, Dave. Had you been there before this?
No, I just went there yesterday to pick these up. And it's very Bettendorf chic, if you will.
What does that mean? I've driven by it. It's got great windows.
But they weren't open. I mean, it's still a little warm out.
Oh, okay.
But it's all like corrugated metal and, nice, sharp, clean kind of look.
Yeah, that's pretty popular nowadays.
Yeah. And I guess the beer that they have on their wall that they known for is like Adventurous Warrior.
Okay.
But that was like a double hop, whatever, something. So it was extra bitter and citrusy.
Oh, and did you have that?
Or? I tried a little sample.
Okay.
So then I went with this one, which is like an American lager. So I'm hoping it's more like a Budweiser.
I'm not.
Pabst.
I like a good lager.
I do, but this one I like them a little lighter. I'm not into the heavy lager.
Yeah,
and this, upon first taste, has a really nice fresh taste to it for a lager.
Yeah, it's super refreshing. I would say it is a little heavy on the back end there, but overall it's a good beer.
It's a lager. You're going to get a little heaviness, but it's not overpowering.
Oh no, not at all.
Right.
And you know what? Like we're used to maybe getting the beers that I don't like are IPAs and stuff.
Yeah, that's why I kind of leaned away from it. They did have a good this blood orange cream, like milk cream kind of thing.
Okay,
that one was good. It looked a little fruity, and it reminded me of like a mimosa.
Oh, okay. We had that blood orange beer from Wake Brewing. That's one of my go-to breweries in the QC, and that's always a nice beer.
Yeah, this is a really nice, refreshing lager, and not too overpowering, and not too much hoppiness to it. Or it's almost a little bit beefier than a standard wheat.
Yeah.
Really good.
And I like Adventurous because they really lean a lot, it seems like, on the river theme.
Yeah.
Which it's a defining factor of the Quad Cities. And
really cool label.
Yeah, and they're called Adventurous, and I noticed that they have a lot of like peanut butter and coconut and blood orange and apple, mango, peach.
Oh, really?
Like a lot of weird kind of stuff.
Okay.
I had their coffee, like stout.
Mm-hmm.
And that one wasn't too bad. It was just a little thick. I just got a little I think I got an 8-ounce glass, and that was enough.
I like places that'll do a small beer for you. Like Wake will do a half pour, and I think that's really nice because a lot of their beers are pretty high APV or ABV.
ABV.
And it's nice to just get a half beer. You can try more without getting filled up or wasted.
Yeah.
And we got to give a shout out to Colin, who he turned me on to this Adventurous. I hadn't been yet, but I was really glad to finally hit it. He talks a lot of good stuff about it. He talks good about the Jump the River, I think, is what
Jump the River?
He has talked about.
Okay.
And that might have been a special collab with somebody else, maybe Wake.
maybe. They have an apple crisp or
Okay.
apple pie, like a hard cider.
Yeah.
And they must have just put it on tap because while we were sitting there, me and the old lady, people kept coming out like, "Oh, I heard you have the apple pie on tap. Oh, the apple pie. Can I get 2 large?" Like going crazy for it.
That sounds like a real
Tried
hitter.
to talk
then.
her into getting one, but she wasn't going for it.
Well, by the sounds of it, they're living up to the word adventurous, coming
Yeah.
out with all those different styles and flavors and touching into some deeper flavor for everyone.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. And
I'd be interested with that apple crisp. That sounds real interesting.
Yeah, definitely. My wife makes a mean apple crisp, and to get that in a beer, hell yeah.
yeah,
Right?
and the location was pretty good. They get food trucks down there sometimes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, when we went, there was like some Euro thing,
Okay, man, I haven't had a Euro in a long time.
and they also have a deal with not old Chicago sports fans,
Okay.
where if you get pizza ordered to their tap room, it's free delivery.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so
That's what's up.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, if you don't, they probably didn't have a kitchen then.
Right.
That's a good way to like really mix the two. If
Absolutely.
you don't have a kitchen.
Very smart.
So, Dave, have you been out and about at all
well,
lately?
I went there,
Okay.
and then you might have seen it on the Facebook page, but I went to Soy 2
Oh, yeah.
in the district of Rock Island. That was actually suggested by Justin X.
Justin X from the Mind Control episode.
Yeah, what was it called? The Lei Hung Gang Hung Lei or
This sounds like a Pornhub search, Dave.
Yeah. Or some really crazy anime.
something. Yeah, but it was like a pork belly and like a curry sauce.
Ooh, that sounds pretty good, though.
It was actually really good. And the old lady got the fried rice, the combo. 'Cause
Okay.
She likes the chicken and the shrimp and the steak.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with any type of meat, really. As long as it's not cooked by Applebee's.
Right. Yeah. She was going to get the pineapple fried rice, but it had raisins in it.
Hey, don't knock it till you try
Yeah,
it.
that's a little too adventurous.
But I feel like a lot of people don't like raisins.
that's
maybe-
why she didn't
Yeah,
get
it might be a texture thing or...
I can do a raisin straight up.
Yeah.
I'm not really a fan of it in my food.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know what? I love raisins straight up.
Right.
Just a big handful of raisins.
Or
tossed in your
chocolate
mouth.
raisins.
Oh, dang.
Raisinets.
You cover anything with chocolate, though.
Raisinets.
Right.
How about you, Brian? You go out to anywhere lately?
My son surprised me today. We have Father's Day tomorrow, obviously, but that'll be with a bunch of us, including my dad and my brothers and so forth. So he wanted to do something, just him and I. And I had never been to Armored Gardens
Oh, okay.
over there in Davenport.
The one with the golf cart on the roof?
The golf cart on the roof, and the back was really nice.
They have a super great patio section.
Super great patio. We played a little ping pong, and but I had some fish tacos there, really good. Didn't mind those at all. We had some wings. We got a little crazy because we were both hungry, so our food was a little more than the eyes.
A little bigger than your stomach,
a little bigger than the stomach. So.
Yeah, I like that Armored Gardens a lot. I know the guy who runs it, and all the beers on tap. And they've been a little hit or miss for me on the food previously. They've gone through a couple of different places, but the inside to me is kind of loud. But dude, their outdoor area is the slam
where it's
dunk.
at.
Yeah.
It wasn't very, very busy on the inside today, and I was going to sit inside and watch some U.S. Open, but, I mean, you got the patio there. The sun was shining. It was gorgeous.
Right. It was
Why
nice in
not?
the shade.
Why not? Yeah, good shade out there. They got some nice canopies to sit underneath. So I give them a good thumbs up there at the Armour Gardens for my first time there. Like I said, the fish tacos were good, and I had some wings, really good, and these waffle fries
Okay.
covered in cheddar with some bacon on top.
Some supreme style
yeah.
waffle.
Lord
fries.
have mercy. That was definitely bigger than our stomachs. It was a huge plate, very big serving. We needed more than 2 people to tackle that one.
Yeah. Well, I was been practicing for this new show I'm doing. It's a tribute to the Beatles, and it's not necessarily like a full album playthrough or nothing like that, but it's got a lot of circus performers and clowns and acts like that. So they hired me in to do some sideshow bits for them. I'm going to be performing. I'm going to essentially be Mr. Kite from one of the Beatles songs, and I've been having a lot of fun practicing and getting ready for that. A lot of not so fun too, but that's okay. We'll talk about that a little later. And then my wife just geared up for her bag sale. She always does a yearly bag sale, and all the donations or all the proceeds, 10% goes to Clock Inc., which supports transgender kids in the area, gives them a safe place to go, and it's everything from like a rec area to like they help them find resources and clothes and this and that. So my wife's always trying to support the underprivileged community like that. So I always appreciate her. And
I've met the director, and
oh yeah,
he's pretty amazing and does a lot of good things.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's definitely a good place to have in our small metropolitan
Totally
area.
agree.
So ready to get into some meat and potatoes?
Sure.
No time like the present. So we brought Brian in because he is a military veteran, the Navy.
Navy, 20 years,
Yeah,
retired.
Thank you for doing all of that and all your service.
Absolutely.
And can you tell us a little bit about getting in and what you did in the military?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it as brief as I can. Obviously, 20 years is a long time.
Yeah, well, hell, we got an hour to fill.
So coming out of high school, 1985, and not really knowing what I wanted to do. A lot of my friends were heading to college. I didn't know if that was going to be my thing. At the time, I felt like I was a little involved with too many things that would have distracted me.
Yeah, I can understand.
You know what I mean? And so I come from a military background, military family, born and raised on Hero Street in Silvis. So huge background.
I'd like to talk about that a little
We could talk a little
too.
about that. Huge background there. And so my grandfather who raised me was in the Navy, and that was the decision that I made. When I made the decision without anybody's permission. I just went straight to the recruiter and said, this is what I'm going to do.
Dave was also in the Marines for a few years.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's kind of how...
Similar situation.
Yeah, because my grandpa's in the Navy, but my friend was actually going in the Marines, and he was stopping by the recruiters to, like, get his ASVAB score or something. And the recruiter was just like, hey, you want to join the Marines? And I was like, sure. Because I was working at McDonald's at the time, like, just got out of high school.
Didn't have anything else to do.
Yeah, the future was not very bright.
Not to say that working at McDonald's is a bad thing or nothing,
Right.
but they got you at a good time.
Yeah, well, they
Yeah.
did say they'd send me to, like, manager Mick College or Mick U or whatever it's called.
Oh,
but
okay.
No.
Yeah, he said no. And the Marines was my actual first choice.
Yeah.
And but there was some things about the Navy, and you'll hear more about that right now or coming up, but that enticed me
Yeah.
that way. But the Marines was my first. I will share a quick story for you. I was at the recruiter's office, like your friend, picking up my ASVAB scores, and there was a gas station right nearby, and I stopped to put gas in my car, and this Marine obviously worked at that recruiter office.
Yeah.
So he's there and he's getting gas, and he's like, hey, you look like a young man that needs a future, and he starts recruiting me right
Yeah.
at
Hey,
the
hard
gas
charger.
pump. Hey, tough guy, and he starts recruiting me right there at the gas pump,
Okay.
and he says, this Marines, that's a life. Sounds like it's good for you, and I said, well, I just got to join the Navy, and he goes, oh, never mind. Get out of my face.
That's funny. I did the ASVAB with a friend of mine just because we didn't know what we wanted to do. Are they all the same, or are they...
Yeah.
I think so. It's kind of like taking the SATs.
But
or
like
the-
maybe each one has a different
ACTs.
ranking to join or something?
Not really.
Oh, okay.
No.
Oh, yeah, like it's like the SATs or the ACTs. It's just
Maybe-
the ASVAB.
Maybe your score has something to do with what you
Yeah,
go into be or something?
Correct.
which you
Okay.
can qualify to get into.
Correct. So back to my story, taking the ASVAB, you qualify for certain things.
Mhm.
And when they go through those things, they tell you what you qualify for. And one of the options that was put in front of me was a job known as aircrew survival equipment man,
Okay.
which is a lot of words for basically a parachute rigger.
Okay.
And a parachute rigger essentially is in charge of everything that has to do with life support systems to the pilot and to aircrew. So anything that's survivability for them, including their oxygen, their flotation, life rafts, life preservers, For pilots, they're O2 regulators, they're the seat kits that go underneath an ejection seat.
Okay.
That's all survival. The parachute itself, that's in an ejection seat. So yeah, and it goes on and on even for air crewmen. So that was what enticed me. It was like, okay, that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
And then the guy threw some sprinkles on it by saying, hey, you know what? You take this job, your hands will never get dirty.
Oh, yeah.
He said the only way your hands will get dirty is if somebody pushes you on the ground and you have to pick yourself back up.
which I could imagine happens in boot camp and such like that.
And I said, well, that's the job for me then.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, it sounds like a very interesting job, not a job that most people I think would consider when going to the military.
So that was what the original plan was. So then I go to boot camp in December of '85. Very, very cold, 60 degrees below zero in Great Lakes, Chicago.
Yeah.
Oh, it was the coldest. I mean, growing up here, you think cold.
Yeah.
There's nothing like cold up
I
there.
bet being
Is that
on
like
that lake.
Gurney?
I don't. Well, right there on Great Lakes is right there outside of Chicago.
Yeah.
Right between Chicago and the Wisconsin border, I guess.
Yeah, because I think Six Flags is right there, and I see a lot of young Navy guys around there.
Yeah. They're about on Liberty, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And so went through there, graduated number one in my class, or number one in boot camp. I was chosen by my company, by my fellow sailors as the honor man of my company.
Okay.
So that was pretty cool. Really neat start to my career.
Yeah.
The family came for my graduation, and I got to put them in VIP seating and they got all the treatment of an honor man's family or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was really big deal because it's your peers that voted it.
Yeah.
So that means that during that time during boot camp, I was extending myself to not just help myself, but to help.
Yeah, and
others.
definitely something with that is, it's not necessarily the toughest guy or the smartest guy or the strongest guy. You have to have a lot of different evenly strengthed attributes, I think, to be voted something like that from your peers.
Absolutely. You got to remember you're sitting with people that are, and I being just little kid from Silvis, Illinois, I'm meeting people from Texas and California, New York, Pennsylvania. You remember?
Oh, yeah.
You're meeting these people from all over, and you're seeing these different, little bits of their culture and the way they speak and the way they handle themselves, the way they kind of think. And I always look in deep and figure out, okay, how can I get along with this guy?
Yeah.
Or how
Have
can
you
I get
always
along with
been like
guy?
that?
Yeah, just always. I just always try to make it a point to be a part of something rather than on the outside judging.
Yeah.
Why not be in it?
Yeah, because, obviously we've only known each other for a few years,
Yeah.
and this was after all of your other experiences.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to know that you've been like that kind of your whole life.
Yeah. So off from boot camp, graduate, go to A school. A school is your technical school.
Okay.
That's where I'm going to go learn to be an aircrew survival equipment man. And that was in Lakehurst, New Jersey.
As in Jersey?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's my first, major air flight in my life.
Yeah.
18 years old, getting on a plane and flying out to the East Coast.
And that's got to be a culture shock, too,
Culture
coming from the
shock.
Midwest, going to New Jersey.
I mean, I've been to St. Louis for vacation at Six Flags.
Yeah.
But that's about the furthest I left home.
Yeah. Was it hard to get on planes and stuff like that back then?
Everything was so simple.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
They used to
Simple.
walk through the metal
they were still
detector.
smoking.
They're still
They're
smoking,
still smoking on
the
airplanes.
Yeah, back then, I remember having a pocket knife and just
Yeah.
walking through, and they're like,
Yeah. Okay.
oh, no, you're fine.
You're fine.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
funny.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Totally different way of life.
So you go through all this training and stuff, and how was the first couple of years of your military experience?
Yeah. So graduating number one out of my A school, I got first pick of orders. I chose those orders based on these senior enlisted guys that were like, hey, here's a spot in Pensacola, Florida. You can go be an instructor.
Okay.
And I'm like, what? An instructor?
So-
I'm not even an E3 yet.
You're teaching people how to do the safety rigging and stuff?
No, at that time, it was an instructor as a PT instructor, physical training instructor for aircrew school and for what was then aviation officer candidate school, where you have these guys coming out of college and they're getting ready to go in the pipeline to become aviators.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what you saw on An Officer and a Gentleman, if you've ever seen Lou Gossett Jr. and
Right. I got no place else to
no place to go. You remember that?
Nope.
No, you
Never
don't.
seen that movie.
Yeah, he doesn't know about him walking into the factory and carrying her out.
What was the nickname he gave him?
Don't remember.
Lou Gossett always called him that name. Anyway, so that's all based on going through the pipeline to become an aviation officer candidate, earning your commission, and then from the commission you move on into the aviation pipeline.
Okay.
So I worked with the drill instructors who are Marine drill instructors that did the physical and mental training for them, all of their boot camp style of work, and then they turned them over to me for legitimate physical training. So I ran them on a 1.5-mile cross country course and on a 600-yard obstacle course, and they had to do an in time at the beginning of their time there,
right,
and an out time, and they had to pass these certain requirements, and my job was to teach them.
Is that something you remember from the military, Dave, working with a lot of other people from different
Yeah, because actually my A school or whatever was in Pensacola, Florida, because I was a aviation electrician.
Oh yeah,
so
A's.
I went down there to learn a bunch of math and
Nice.
like work on
Schoolhouse.
Yep. And they had like some like prop planes that they could go in there and like break a wire, and then we'd have to troubleshoot it and see where the problem is, fix it.
that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It was neat. And a lot of Navy there, some Air Force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'd always make fun of the Air Force because they're technically still in boot camp, so they had to walk in formation. So we'd be out there yelling at them, pivot, pivot. Like,
Your left.
yeah.
So Pensacola, going in there and eventually becoming an instructor, had to pay my dues prior. Obviously, I was a new guy on the block, and then make rank and kind of climb up. And as I became an instructor, I excelled at everything I did there. I was instructor of the quarter, nominated instructor of the year, sailor of the quarter, a lot of accolades, a lot of different things. And I was really at the top of my game. I'm 19 years old. And Dave will tell you, Pensacola, Florida is not a bad place to be for your first duty station.
Yeah, some leave there would be nice.
You're working all day, but you're free. Afterwards, it's shore duty. There's not a lot of pressure, so to speak. I just had to teach and do a day, and here it is. This is my first duty station in the Navy.
Yeah.
So I've always been pretty lucky,
Because the base is nice too.
The base is gorgeous.
Right outside of where like my schoolhouse was, the smoking area, it was like there was a beach right there. You're just like staring at the Gulf. Like
Nice.
Yeah.
They call it the cradle of naval aviation. So there's a lot of naval aviation history there, and it's also the home of the Blue Angels.
Yeah.
So you
that's
get to
cool.
see them practice like every Thursday.
All the time. I have so many pictures of them.
They just fly
zipping
right
around.
over the top of the base.
That's super cool.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
So what did you said you were in the Navy for 20 years.
Yep.
So what was, the middle to end of your career like?
So I leave Pensacola, and I worked for a Master Chief Navy SEAL. He was the senior enlisted guy
Okay.
of the training area that I worked in. So obviously, like I said, I did a lot of good things. So he says, well, you don't need to go to the fleet. You don't need to go to a ship. You don't need to
Right.
go do this. I need you with SEAL teams.
Okay.
And I want you to be a SEAL team rigger, what they call a special operations rigger. I said, Roger that, Master Chief. If that's what you want. I'll do it.
Yeah, I won't complain.
I won't complain. So he did some talking to what we call a detailer. A detailer funnels out your orders. And they got me into SEAL Team 8 in Little Creek, Virginia as a special operations rigger. So en route, leaving Pensacola, I stop at Fort Benning, Georgia, and go through jump school in Fort Benning with the Army.
Jump school meaning
Your basic airborne. Basic airborne, static line parachutes.
I'm pretty ignorant to all of
It's
this,
okay.
so.
It's what you see in the movies where, guys are coming out that side door, parachutes
Of a
popping
plane.
immediately. Yeah. Side
Okay.
door of an airplane.
Yeah.
Parachute pops immediately. That's a static line.
That's where
static line,
you
essentially.
clip on,
Okay.
and then you just run out the back, and it pulls your parachute for you.
Or the
Oh.
side door.
Either way, yeah.
Either way. But that's
And that was what you were going to school for,
correct.
learning how to do that.
To jump, yes.
Yeah. And what was your first jump like?
Well, I got to take you back to Lakers for my first jump. So first jump there, we had to make a jump. because you're going through to become a parachute rigger. The idea was if you can pack it for somebody else, then you better be able to jump it yourself.
Right.
I guess I didn't even consider that.
So you pack one during that school time in Lakehurst, and we went up in what was called a CH.
Your first jump was your
First
pack.
jump was my parachute that I packed.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
Because don't you have to lay it out and then fold it just right to fit in there so it'll...
Fold it, roll it, store it into the bag. All the lines got to be done correctly. Everything needs to, line up. So when it deploys, by deploying, I mean from the moment it leaves out of the aircraft and begins to open and give you that canopy, that's all your deployment sequence.
Wow.
That's all got to be in right, right. It's got to be right, or
if it's all just
it's a malfunction.
A ball that pops out.
It's a malfunction.
Yeah.
And now you're in trouble, and you got a lot of decisions to make. But
yeah. So do you have? I would imagine every parachute has the emergency chute as well.
Correct.
And so you have to probably fold both of them.
No, at that time we did not. Only because I did later on, but at that time we did not, because the idea there was they'd want one of the instructors folding your reserve.
Oh, okay.
Because and
that makes sense too.
If I did my pack wrong,
you'd probably do it wrong for both. I mean,
potentially.
Yeah.
And so the idea is that we don't lose nobody. We want to be able to, if he's got to go to a reserve, we want that reserve to be correct.
Yeah.
So they made sure they were all packed by instructors.
Okay. Yeah. And then so you went to this school to do more. So
then I went to Airborne, Fort Benning, Georgia. Another whole nother culture shock there, because now you're working with the Army. And as a Navy person, you're the minority.
Okay.
And so you get picked on. They try to come at you. They try to come after you for everything.
Yeah.
Because they think we're lazy and we don't do things the way the Army way.
Right.
Be
a squid.
Get a squid. Yeah. You guys don't belong here. You belong in the water.
Yeah. Where's your boat?
You don't belong in the air. What are you doing here? So you go through that, and then reported to SEAL Team 8. And that began my career as a special operations parachute rigger, and then a lot of other things that we can talk about came into play that other than just parachuting. But I just moved myself up the pipeline. As I told you earlier, I was always a hard charger. I was always trying to be at the top of everything I did. So by doing that, I was able to elevate immediately into a lot of different responsibilities, and it led to being able to do eventually military free fall, which now you're deploying your own parachute. Mm-hmm. You're no longer on a rope.
Yeah.
And you're on a square canopy, and you're not bouncing on the ground so hard.
Yeah.
Those round parachutes are nothing. You turn into nothing but a lawn dart with those those guys. So,
and what would be the difference of why you would want to do the pull parachute versus the clip parachute?
The rounds and the static line way of going in is, number one, you could put in a mass amount of people from a lower altitude.
Okay.
Right. And you can go low with a square canopy, which is your free fall canopy. You can go low with that, but you can only go so low. And because you need time. If you had to deploy a reserve, you would need time for that to happen. But your static line parachute, you can do a mass deployment.
Okay.
Think back to D-Day. Think back to Normandy Beach,
where you just see all those
aircraft.
Yeah.
Well, to train them in that style of jumping and that type of insertion with a round canopy under a static line takes far less time because it's more technical, and there's a lot more things involved in jumping with the free fall parachute.
Okay.
With and going in as a military free fall. It's so you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So you can get a mass amount of people in a shorter period of time.
Yeah.
So how was your first jump? Because I've only done a tandem, and just looking out the door, I remember thinking, well, if this guy doesn't want to jump, that's fine. But then we just kind of like tumbled out.
Yeah.
It's like, here we go.
Yeah. So go back to Lakehurst, New Jersey once again. There we are. We're on what's called a CH-46. And you guys all know what a Chinook is. a CH-47.
Yeah,
helicopter.
Big,
Yeah, I knew
big
that.
helicopter, egg beater. You've
Okay,
seen
yeah,
them.
yeah.
with the two.
The double prop. You've seen them. The 46 is the baby brother of that. It's smaller, but same concept.
Right.
2 props and so forth. So this is not only my first helicopter ride, but I'm going up and jumping out.
Yeah.
Never been on a helicopter. I'm 19 years old, and I'm about to
Right.
jump out of it. Okay? And so...
And this wasn't tandem.
No, this is on a static line parachute.
You have to jump out.
You're clipping in, and you're jumping out, and you're done. That's it. That's just get out of the plane. That's it. And there's training involved, obviously.
Yeah.
But we won't go into all that. But so to your question, Dave, what was that like? Well, I remember, and you stand in line. You know, you're standing in line.
Where were you?
Second from the front.
Not the first guy, the second guy.
Yeah. Second from the front. And so we were, you're going through, they tell you all the sequence of events. We won't go into all that, but, and there we are, finally we're clipped in and we're going through all the checks, the last checks.
As you're talking about this, how well do you remember this?
Oh, I remember it like it was yesterday.
Okay.
I can even see it right now in my mind. And I remember, so the bottom line to this story is all I could repeat to myself over and over and over again as my stomach's turning, as I'm scared to death, is just like a ride at Disney World. Just like a ride at Disney World. This is just a ride. It's just a ride. You're fine. You're fine. Just go. You just got to go. You're having these conversations back and forth, and then you see that first guy take those first steps. And we were going off the back ramp on this case.
Okay.
So you're going off the back ramp, and that's a whole nother piece. The ramp's open. You're flying over 1,500 feet, over the land, and you can see straight out. And
Was it staying static or moving forward?
No, it's moving forward.
Okay.
You have to move forward.
Okay.
Yeah, and that helps the deployment process of the parachute.
Okay.
So you have some forward speed, so the aircraft's probably doing, maybe pushing or trying to get, 80 to 90 knots forward speed for you. So he goes, and then there's just no turning back, and boom, you go. And in your sequence, you count to yourself 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, check canopy. This is your training. So, you hold tuck. I'm sorry. You hold tuck, you hold tight. You wait 1,000 to 4,000. You look up, canopy's supposed to be there. So there it is. Boom. Check canopy. And then check for other jumpers immediately because you don't want to hit nobody.
Mm-hmm.
And then check altitude. Look down where you're at. Check for your drop zone. Prepare yourself to land because it's that fast.
Yeah.
This particular style is that fast. And you want to be into the wind because if you're not into the wind, then you can go too fast forward and eat it hard.
Yeah.
Because the canopy itself will fly about 7 to 10 miles an hour forward
But
speed
if you got a
by
backwind.
itself. Yeah, so if I have 10 miles on my back, I got 20 miles into the ground. Okay? So I turn in to the wind, made a pretty decent landing, actually. I was not bad. I mean, I felt like a bag of potatoes hitting the ground, but, I had all my fingers and toes, and I could wiggle my legs and so forth.
But that style, that's the one where you have your feet together and you just
Feet
kind of
together.
roll.
It's called a PLF.
Yeah.
They call it a preferred landing fall. So you want to go balls of your feet, collapse your knees together, let your side saddle hit the ground.
Yeah, you kind of roll onto your hip.
Roll
kinda.
onto your shoulder, right?
Yeah.
Leave your arms in
Right.
because you don't want to put an arm out.
Brian's doing all the motions right now.
Doing all the motions, rolling in, and then let the legs flip over, and then there's your PLF, your preferred landing fall. I always thought that was hilarious.
Just falling with style.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Right.
falling
The
with
preferred
grace.
way. Yes.
So what was your jump like, Dave? Was it in the military? Was it out of the military?
I was in the military, but it was like a thing that the recreation people set up. And it was just a tandem dive, and we were in like a prop plane.
So this
kinda
wasn't
thing.
necessarily your training.
No, it was
Okay.
just a thing to do for fun.
That sounds cool, though.
Yeah, and you hooked up to a guy behind you who's going to take care of all the parachute and everything. Because in
Nothing
real,
like being strapped to the front of a guy.
yeah. But if you're
And
gonna
they're
learn,
in control.
Yeah.
yeah, if you do it for like the civilian side, I guess you have to do that 3 times,
Mm-hmm.
and then they let you hold the altimeter and then tell them when to pull it, and then you get to pull it, and then you get to go by yourself.
Okay.
So I just did a tandem, and yeah, you like have to scoot because you can't stand up.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to the side, and we were like second to last, and yeah, I'm just looking into clouds, and I'm like. Yeah, like I'll go, but if this guy doesn't want to, I'm okay with that. And he's like, "You ready?" And we push off and we tumble a little, and then we get all flat out with your hands out and everything. And he starts pointing out all the other people and their chutes opening. I'm like, "That's cool. Can we open ours?" But as soon as it opened,
Whenever you're ready, sir.
right? But as soon as it opened, I was like, "Yes, that was awesome. I could do that again."
Yeah.
And then we busted a cloud, and it's all misty and
It's really
Oh,
cool.
that
Clouds
sounds
are really cool.
yeah.
I used to go through a lot of clouds in Puerto Rico, and I would make it a point under canopy to fly towards like a big cloud.
Yeah.
And we jumped in Puerto Rico near these mountains. So the clouds themselves would travel towards these mountains. They'd bounce off these mountains and then come back towards the drop zone area.
I bet that's just crazy to
So
see.
you can be under your canopy and just literally go right to the edge of a cloud and just skim through it. And I did have a couple exits in free fall through clouds, and that's scary.
Yeah.
That's scary because you don't know who's opening below you. You don't know who might be running into you.
Yeah, 'cause it's
and
thick.
the rule there is you just hold what you got. You fall straight through.
Yeah.
Don't do anything sudden or any type of movement
Right.
forward or whatever, and try not to pull open in a cloud.
In a cloud.
Because somebody may be above you.
Right, because you do get kind of jerked up
Right.
when you do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, the clouds are neat, though. So that is my first jump, static line at Lakehurst, New Jersey. There you
Yeah.
have it. That was that one. And then again, airborne was just about the same as that,
Okay.
but on a much larger scale, because I think our jump in Lakehurst was maybe 10 people. Now I'm going to go out with like 200, 300
Out of the plane or?
out of the sides of C-130s.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a whole nother game because there's parachutes, so many parachutes in the sky that it blocks the sun. I mean, it's that many people. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you got to do that 5 times to
Okay.
graduate from there. You get 5 jumps in Fort Benning to get your basic airborne,
Okay.
your basic airborne wings, your pin from them.
And so you've been trained to train people.
Mm-hmm.
Now what is the next step? Where do you go? What do you do?
So as a special operations rigger at SEAL team, it was my job to try to get as good as I could as a jumper, and then other things too. I can talk about rappelling, fast roping, what we call casting.
You have to go to, I'm trying to think of the acronym, SEERS training?
I didn't have to go to SEER,
Okay.
right, for the survival.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because it was like, again, was strictly air operations.
Okay.
But I had to become a rappel master, a fast rope master, a jump master.
Okay.
So I had to have enough jumping and enough time in helicopters and stuff like that in order to get those qualifications so that I could train these guys and get them prepped for their deployments. And then at the same time I'm doing that, I'm maintaining all the equipment myself. I have other riggers, but
were you like the head?
but I was the head of my my command.
Okay.
So, it's a lot of logistics. Every jump that we would do, I'd have to set up the aircraft, the drop zone, the medical response teams, the airspace. You got to get airspace permission. You got to, there's just a lot to vehicles, equipment, everything that goes into it.
A lot of logistics.
A lot of logistics. I did a lot of logistics.
And so you do this for how long?
So I was at SEAL Team 8, and then I left SEAL Team 8, and I went to EOD, Explosive Ordnance Disposal, and I started out there at the mobile unit, which is there on Little Creek in Virginia, and now they're doing a whole different jump, Dave. They're now, EOD, what they were doing was a static line on a square canopy.
Okay.
So now we're talking about the similar type of exit where you leave and
Opens up
the
for
static line itself pulls for you, but now you're under a square canopy and you're able to maneuver and more control. The idea there was for explosive ordnance disposal, generally speaking, they're going to be called into an area that needs to be cleared.
Like
right?
landmines.
Like mines, IEDs, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And so you can insert them by parachuting them in, but there wasn't really a need for them to go halo, right? So there was no need for them to go 10,000, 13,000 feet, where we can get them out at 4,000, 5,000 feet, right?
Right.
And still have them have the capability of flying together and being under parachute together and landing in the same area.
Right.
So that's what we did, training them and getting them prepared for their deployments. So if ever the time came where they had to jump into a hot area, they knew how to jump together, they knew how to fly together, they knew how to land in the same location. And so a lot of pinpoint, really
like accurate
type of, and you do it over and over and over again.
And so actually going back to you were talking about the Blue Angels in Florida. And I don't know if the Blue Angels do anything other than like kind of spectate fly. Was that anything that they ever did within the military? With did you ever do any sort of, for lack of a better term, shows or?
I mean, as a jumper,
yeah.
I jumped into an air show in Reading, Pennsylvania.
Oh.
I jumped into an air show in Texas.
And were these with the military?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I saw a military style, not like your civilian free fall.
Because around here they've had the parachuting like Irish people. Yeah. And I almost want to say that maybe
the flying Elvises.
Oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
So what kind of things have you done with that?
Yeah, so nothing in the civilian world. Only thing we did was on a military level.
Oh, okay. So you parachuted into other bases to kind of show people?
No, civilian airports, but it was under the idea of this, we're going to show you the military capability.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't just for show. It was meant to be more tactical.
And was this for other members of the military or for also spectators?
All civilians and spectators.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's like you go to the air show and they're going to we're going to do a military display of
this.
Yeah, jumping out of the airplane and
then they're going to see them land together, and then they're going to drop their equipment, and then they're going to they're going to set up a perimeter, and then a helo's going to come in and evacuate them out.
Oh, that sounds super cool.
And stuff like that.
What's that line? Where you all clip
spy
onto
line.
the line and
I was a spy master as well.
Yeah, lift you up one at a time.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, have you ever seen that?
I've never seen it.
Yeah, so it's basically this braided nylon rope. I want to say it's probably about 120 feet long. Up from the bottom of the rope, every other side of the rope, there's these D-rings that are locked into the nylon rope. Mm-hmm. And so each individual in the squad or whatever has a special harness on, and on that harness there's a strap on the back and a carabiner, and so they'll come in with the helo, drop this right out the center of, say, a CH-47, Black Hawk, whatever the case may be, and they drop that line onto the ground. They hover just above the team, and then the team locks into this rope, and then the helo gradually lifts straight up, and you need to walk yourself up and under until your feet leave the ground, and then you're basically hung and hanging under that rope, under that line until they can take you to a safe location and set you down. All right,
so you all have my permission to pause the podcast here, open your YouTube, and check out Military Spy Line, was it?
Yes.
Yeah, check that out. I'm going to do that right after the pod.
Absolutely.
I was stationed in North Carolina, and at Lejeune, I was stationed on there for a little bit, I was actually on New River, but I had to work on Lejeune for a little bit. And yeah, you would see the guys, like the recon guys, just like flying around, like
we did a lot of work with recon.
Do a lot of training.
Did a lot of work with recon, and so again, going back to my job, so now I have to become a spy master. Mm-hmm. So I got to be the guy who teaches them and trains them on that spy and how to run that spy. and how to run that evolution. And I tell you what, the craziest time under that spy rope is at night.
Yeah.
Is at night. You know, in the dark of the night, you
Can't see anything.
You got nothing but chem lights and a few strobes.
Yeah.
You know, and you're hanging underneath there.
You got to put a lot of faith in that pilot.
Just above the tree level, and you see the shade of the tops of the trees below you, and that's all faith in the pilot. Yeah.
Yeah.
The talk between the air crew and the pilot is so critical, because they'll give those commands. As a master, you're on board the aircraft, you get to hear their conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I get to interrupt if I have to, if I want to tell them, you know, something's good, something's wrong, something's whatever. But those air crewmen, the enlisted air crewmen talking to the pilot, and that conversation is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
They tell them just how far from the ground they are and how many people left on deck, when they've left the deck, you know, where they're at and how they are before that.
Right, because it's not like driving. They can't just look out their rearview mirrors. Nope. So when they have guys on either side and one in back.
Spotting.
Yeah, spotting, telling them where they're at.
And that, because everything's happening underneath the helicopter.
Just a weird interjection about communication. I don't know what I was listening to it for, but I was listening to a bunch of these plane crash dissections. And they were talking about Korean Airlines had the worst rating for an airlines for a long time, and it was because within their culture they have like 5 different hierarchies of communication. So when the captain says something, nobody can contradict it. Right. And if they do, they have to say something along the lines of, what do you think about this? And then the captain can either like accept it as saying that he's almost giving like an order or something like that. But then the captain has a way that he returns the communication. He's like, oh, I don't know. It was just like super casual about things about flying a plane. And I think it was in like the 80s, a lot of the Korean and Asian airlines brought in American pilots to train their like lower crewmen, so that they would be more confrontational when communicating. I had heard one story that there was a lady having a stroke, so the pilot went to help her, and he was giving the second in command information on what to tell the people. They were trying to land at an airport they weren't planning to land at, and the second in command was talking to the ground people, and he was like, hey, we're low on fuel. And like technically, or we're getting low on fuel, and technically you're always getting low on fuel when you're driving a car or flying a plane. Yeah. And then the person on the ground was like, well, I'm going to need you to circle around, head 5 miles out and circle around to restart your landing. And the second in command knew that he didn't have enough fuel, but he was just like, okay, I guess. And it's just like hearing stories like that is so crazy. And I would imagine, especially coming from the military and hearing all that communication all day, every day.
Yeah, and you're right. And that second command would normally, an American pilot would normally say, exactly, I'm sitting at yay amount, because their fuel is measured by, is measured by weight. Yeah. So they'll tell exactly what weight I have. Mm-hmm. And that way those folks in the tower would know exactly, based on this amount of fuel, I can't send him 5 miles around. Yeah, right. Yeah, we don't have that kind of time. Yeah. That's critical.
Yeah. It's so strange how culture plays into stuff.
So strange. And so on the aircraft, and I'll take it like through a static line jump. You want to talk about communication. It's all kept so that everybody can remember over and over and over again what to do. So this is what it sounds like to get up and put somebody out of an aircraft. So I'm the jump master, right? And I got these guys on a static line. We're 1,500 feet above the air, and I got to get these guys out. Communication's critical, right? They got to know exactly what they're supposed to do. They're scared. They might have 1 jump. They might have 2 jump. They might have 10 jumps under their belt. You don't know. Their experience level, their fear level, and all of that. So you have to keep everything into a tight communication. Mm-hmm. There can't be a bunch of him haul, rolling around.
Right.
So it goes like this. It's stand up. They stand up. It's hook up. They take that static line, they hook up.
Yeah.
Check static line. They grab that static line, they pull on it, they make sure it's hooked up, ensure that's hooked up, right?
Yeah.
Check static line.
Is there a way to pull a static line in case it doesn't pull, or
No.
is it just an emergency?
No,
after
just
that?
your emergency parachute, which is on your front chest.
Okay.
And
You can keep going.
yeah, and it's check static line. Check equipment. Now you're checking, am I hooked up everywhere?
All the buckles.
Is my reserve in place? Is it accessible? Where's my reserve ripcord if I need it? Check equipment. Check the guy in front of you at the same time during check equipment.
Yeah.
Check his equipment from the backside. So everybody goes like that. So from the front to the back, now as a jump master, I'm yelling out, sound off for equipment check. So now the first guy or the last guy to the front will smack the guy in front, smack the guy in front, smack the guy in front, and say that they're good. And then the guy in front, number one guy who's exiting, will give me a thumbs up, all good for equipment check. Right?
Yeah.
And then it's standby. Now I got them on standby. If it's about 30 seconds before they're going to get out, I might tell them 30 seconds. And it looks like a half a C, 30 seconds, this much time, 30 seconds, and then it's one big go. Now, what happens if we're not going? Am I going to turn around and say no? Because doesn't no sound like go?
Oh.
No. I'm going to turn around. I'm going to walk towards them. I'm going to cross my hands in front of me, and I'm going to shake my head very, very much so
Yeah.
that first jumper sees I'm saying no with my body language
Yeah.
because no sounds like go.
Oh, that's smart.
So that's how we get somebody out of the that's how we get them out of the aircraft safely, following those simple instructions, going step by step by step to get them out of the aircraft.
That whole KISS method.
KISS method.
Yep.
Keep it simple, stupid.
I'm triggered.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So the reason we had Brian on this podcast, and it sounds like, maybe you didn't plan on it, but I kind of, after, how many jumps would you say you had?
Almost 2,000 military free falls, and then probably a couple hundred static lines.
So over 2,000 times you've jumped out of an airplane.
Correct.
With
a parachute, but I've gone out other ways.
Okay. I think, that kind of makes you, in my books, a little bit of a daredevil.
Okay.
And we wanted to have you on just to kind of talk about, especially your experiences, especially for the 4th of July episode. And then me and Dave kind of did a little bit of other research and just kind of wanted you to chime in as we talk about this kind of stuff.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be too technical. You can say something is good. That sounds good. Or you can, it might trigger something of your experiences or something like that. We just thought you were a cool guy. Have you on.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And it's always a pleasure to talk about what I did because there was worked with a lot of amazing people. So it wasn't just what I was able to succeed and do. It was who I was able to help succeed.
Yeah.
That for me was the biggest part. My job technically was called support. And I took it very, very seriously. Obviously working with some of the greatest warriors in the world, there's no time for me to be half-stepping.
Right.
And I had a great relationship with them because they knew just how much and how devoted I was to my craft and how well I wanted their training to be.
Well, thank you for your service,
Sir.
Brian.
Yes, sir.
And thank you, Dave, for
Absolutely, Dave.
it's always so weird. A lot of times people are like, "Don't thank me. I didn't do nothing."
Yeah.
But deciding to go into that, or in the past getting drafted, it's a commitment, a life commitment, and I think it's important to respect that. And you know what? I've kind of bounced around with my opinions on the government and the country and the military, but there is nothing more important to me than the people within it. Who are doing the hard work as opposed to sitting back in chairs and using government money for hookers and blow.
Right.
Well, we're all entitled to our opinion. We had our own opinions therein our, commands and our time in the service.
I couldn't imagine, being in there and maybe not approving of some of the things they're doing.
A lot.
Which I would imagine having that many people in there, that happens.
It just so happened that, and you were right. For the most part, it's a volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what always needs to be remembered is a volunteer chose to do this for the most part. Drafts were very limited numbers in terms of the overall volunteer numbers.
Right.
That's not even a percentage of what volunteered to do that. And once you're there, it's about the person to your left and the person to your right.
Mm-hmm.
Your opinions only go so far. When the trigger time comes, and regardless of what your job is, you don't have to be a Navy SEAL, you don't have to be an EOD.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever your job is, when the time comes and you have to activate the training that's been given to you for a purpose and for a reason, then you should be 100% ready to go, regardless of your opinions.
Yeah, for sure. So I got here the definition of a daredevil. A lot of times we start off the episodes, the meat and potatoes, if you will, with a definition, just to kind of give some textbook to what we're talking about. And so, daredevil, a reckless person who enjoys doing dangerous things. Now you don't seem like you were a reckless person. Obviously, a lot of structure in the military, but doing dangerous things. I couldn't imagine how dangerous, a failure jumping out of a plane. And you survived it 2,000 times. That just goes to show, a lot of the training.
Absolutely. And I had 3 major malfunctions in my free fall. And by major, I mean I had to go from my main canopy to my reserve during a major malfunction. One was called a bag lock, where the parachute got locked into the bag.
Okay.
And the bag was just bouncing up there above my head.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get it to come out. Went through the procedures to try to get it to come out, couldn't get it. Cut it away. By cut it away, I mean you release the main, you go to your reserve, and I was able to make it home safe under a reserve.
Well, I'm thankful for that.
And then I had a broken steering line, so now I have no ability to turn my canopy. I mean, I could use my risers, but it was sending my parachute into like a small spin, right?
Yeah.
And I'm having to continually counter that. So early on, I decided I'm going to get rid of it, and I went to my reserve. And then the last one, I had a line over the canopy. What happens there is the parachute deploys. It somehow it's a slow deployment, and the parachute lines themselves got wrapped around the canopy. And they call it a Mae West because it makes the parachute look like two big breasts, right? So they call it the Mae West because there's like a bubble and then another bubble. That's the old school name for it. And that canopy obviously is uncontrollable. You cannot fly it like that. And so I went to my reserve. So there was my 3, major cutaways and major reserve deployments. And yeah, that's where that training kicks in.
And does a reserve have all essentially the same features? You can maneuver a reserve?
Yeah.
Okay.
Same features. In our case, we used a very large canopy for military jumping. Essentially, not the instructors. We can use smaller canopies as an instructor, but you want to train your guys on what they're going to jump in for real, right? So that's about a 370 square foot canopy. And if you went to your reserve, it was a 270 square foot canopy. Okay. Same capabilities, exactly the same type of parachute, just a little bit smaller.
Okay. So I did a little bit of research outside of necessarily daredevils themselves. But I was looking at a lot of like addiction to thrill. And well, first of all, let me say Daredevil, the movie and comic book, made this subject terrible to research.
Yeah.
All I got was Ben Affleck all over my search pages. But, an addiction to thrill with death consequence activities was a good term I heard. And like using your fear response to motivate your body to survive. Having within the brain the amygdala releasing hormones which quicken the heart and senses and release dopamine. And as you do these feats, they say a lot of times bungee jumpers, skydivers, rock climbers, they get hits of dopamine like essentially a heroin addict would do.
Like adrenaline junkies.
Yes.
Totally agree.
And they say that kind of experience can change your brain. Did you check out anything like that, Dave?
Not about the actual what happens to you physically when you do that kind of stuff. I just checked out People.
Okay.
Like Joseph Kittinger.
Kittinger.
Or Colonel Joseph Kittinger.
Okay.
Who was the first person to do
I've heard that name.
Yeah, he did like an atmospheric dive jump.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, from 102,000 feet up.
And what were the heights you were jumping at, Brian?
So on average, we would want to jump at 13,000 feet.
13,000. This guy was at 100,000.
Correct.
Oh my god.
So-
Stratos.
Stratos,
jumping.
yeah.
He was in the
So
stratosphere.
to put a little perspective to that, if we got out at 13,000 feet and we pulled our canopy open at 2,500 feet, you're essentially in free fall from 60 to 65 seconds.
Yeah.
Oh.
So you go beyond that.
Yeah, this guy was in free fall for 4.5 minutes.
Oh my
4.5 minutes.
That has to like change you for
Yeah,
sure.
and
Crazy.
He reached speeds of 614 miles an hour.
What the fuck?
Yes, sir.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well,
the air's thinner.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't have all those atoms holding you up.
Yeah, it's
Slowing you down.
The air's thinner. It's all and it's all about the way that you are, when you jump out of an aircraft, you're going on top of the wind.
yeah.
Essentially, you think of wind going left to right, east to west, north to south. But it also comes up from the ground. Because your body is falling. That means that you're falling into wind.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's when you see like those
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
100-year-old man skydives for his birthday and his cheeks were flapping back.
Yeah.
Looks like he's got a leaf blower in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another perspective to put that in, on average, out of 13,000 feet, you're probably in between pulling your canopy at 2,500 feet, you're probably hitting your highest speed at about 120 miles an hour.
Oh my god.
What was his?
614.
Yeah.
And he pulled
He'd
his
have been in a
he pulled
suit.
his parachute at
Oh, yeah, he is.
1,800 feet. Yeah,
He's suited in oxygen.
Yeah, I didn't even
it's
consider
a
the
pressurized
oxygen.
suit. But if you look at the picture when he jumps out, because he was in a
Hot
air balloon, and he was in an open basket. And when he takes that step off, there's a picture of him, and his legs have red duct tape because his suit was duct taped up, and he actually lost pressure in his hands, and they swelled so bad. And when he hit the ground, they were just all white. It's like really hot and then really cold, and then to like normalized temperature.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on there.
It can get really cold even up beyond 10,000 feet. So as you climb in altitude, you lose a certain, I don't remember all my statistics, all my as a jump master, you got to know all these different levels of air, right? There's different levels of where things happen and where temperatures change and so forth. And you had to know all of that to calculate where you're going to exit and where you're going to land. There's different calculations that go into that. It's a lot of math and a lot of stuff. But to the point of temperature, he left the cold air, and then hit some warm air,
Right.
Because now he's closer to the sun. Out of a whole nother, what was that? He was in the stratosphere. So once he left that and he came back in, now he's in a very, very cold temp, and then breaks through.
Yeah.
And I can remember doing jumps that were about 45, 50 degrees on the ground, but even at 13,000 feet, you're at like 32 degrees.
Wow.
And that ramp's open and the cold air's on you.
Oh yeah.
Your snot's freezing to your face and so forth. And so I can't even imagine what he had to go through, those changes in temperatures.
Yeah, and the Felix Baumgartner, the guy who did the Red Bull jump.
Yep. The squirrel suit. Is that the squirrel suit?
No,
Oh, that was the one without a canopy onto a...
no, he was another strato jumper.
Oh, another stratum.
But Red Bull sponsored it, and he did it from 126,720 feet. Yeah, and it took him 90 minutes to reach altitude, a total of like 4.5 minutes because from when he jumped to when he released his parachute was like about 4 minutes, and he reached 720 miles an hour.
Oh my god.
Yeah, but he started spinning out of control.
And that will increase your speed.
Yeah, and he said the suit was pressurized, so he couldn't really figure out how to balance it because he couldn't feel the wind because he's in a
Right.
pressurized suit.
Yeah.
It's a very good point. That's a very good point. When you fly your body over the wind as your belly to earth, when you're belly to earth, it's nothing different than putting your arm outside the window at 65 miles an hour.
Yeah.
If you move your hand a certain direction, your hand, you know how you do your little wavy thing
Yeah.
out
It's
there?
funny
Okay.
that you say that
But you
because it's
can
like I'm not the
feel
only
it.
one that did that.
So
Yeah.
so you feel the air and you feel the resistance, right? And that's what it is. It's your body creating resistance on top of that wind that you're falling on. Well, having that feel plays a role in how you turn your body, how you make maneuvers in the air, whether you go left, go right, forward, or backwards, because you can do all of that in the air.
Yeah.
I can see what that would be like because he has no feel for the air.
And once the air pressure got more dense, I guess,
Yeah.
he was able to control it.
Right.
But then he was kind of freaking out because his visor was fogging up.
Ah.
And he actually had Joseph with him in his ear, being like, "You're all right, buddy. It's cold air right now. Just keep breathing. It's going to get warmer. That fog's going to go away." And he was like, really, if to watch it, the guy was really in his ear being like, "It's all right. Talk to me. Tell me what you're doing." Like keeping him calm and letting him know he's okay.
Yeah,
that's
that's
cool.
huge.
Yeah.
Imagine not being able to see. And I had a couple jumps where my goggles came off my face.
Oh.
And that wind is just, again, you're you could be anywhere from 100 to 110 miles an hour, and you're trying to see.
Yeah.
And your eyes are just watering like mad. And I couldn't imagine the fog after what he's already been through,
Right.
everything that's going on in his mind, and not being able to see. That would be truly scary.
I had something. The highest skydive without a parachute,
Yeah.
and that was Luke Atkins jumped from an airplane at 25,000 feet
Yeah.
without a parachute in the California desert. He named the stunt Heaven Sent.
Yeah.
And so he jumped out of the plane and needed to hit a 10,000 square foot net.
Yes.
Oh.
And
Have you ever watched it?
no, I haven't. Have you?
Oh yeah.
Was
Yeah. That would not be me. That would not be me. I can't even tell you guys. You've already heard a little bit of what I've spoken about in terms of, there's so many. Imagine the ocean, right? And the currents that go through the ocean. You've all seen, documentaries on how the ocean moves, and you've seen Finding Nemo,
Right.
all right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? You seen Finding Nemo,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Don't act like you didn't.
The turtles?
The
Is that what
turtles
you're talking about?
Yeah.
hitting the streams, right? And they're
Noggin,
cruising on it.
dude.
Noggin, dude. Well, there's those streams. Those are present in the sky,
Oh.
right? They're called jet streams.
Okay.
You've seen it. You've heard
Well,
of
yeah,
it.
that's how a lot of planes fly in them, right?
Sure, and you can either have it on your tail or you can be flying into it, whatever the case may be. And imagine a guy without a parachute
Right.
getting out at yay amount of height, yay however high, and having to hit that target. Now, 10,000 square foot of netting sounds like a lot, and if you were standing underneath it, would probably look like a lot.
Yeah.
But he can't see it
Yeah, from that high
from the
up.
moment he leaves the aircraft.
Yeah.
He can see the area. He can see the land
Masses,
mass,
maybe rivers
He
and
can see
lakes.
landmarks.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he studied the hell out of landmarks
Oh,
because
yeah.
you got to be, and we did that in the military. You got to study the landmarks and you got to know your targets and how to get there and how to fly your body in a way that puts you in the most opportune position to get under a canopy and then use the canopy to get you there. This guy's doing it. No canopy, no
Yeah.
parachute, flying his body to get to that 10,000 square foot netting. And that is absolutely Daredevil. nuts.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Absolutely.
There was Damian Walters. They did a free fall from 125 feet into an airbag.
Oh, okay.
And for some reason, Guinness says that's the highest like free fall on film
Oh,
because that was for Assassin's Creed. But then I heard of Dar Robinson, and he jumped out of a Regency Hyatt in Atlanta for 220 feet for the movie Sharky's Machine, which is a Burt Reynolds
Oh
movie.
yeah, old
Oh.
school. Yeah, I remember that.
And
you see that movie, Brian?
Oh yeah, a long time ago.
it's like at the end of the movie where like Bus shoots himself or something and falls out a window.
Yeah.
And it's the highest jump at 220 feet, but I don't know if they didn't submit it to Guinness,
Wow.
Yeah.
but it was the highest one recorded. But if you watch the movie, they only use the first part, and the wide angle parts is a dummy.
Ha!
So he jumped that for just like, I don't know, a couple seconds of film.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
back in the day, you watched those Burt Reynolds movies like that because, there was a lot of stuntman and stunt stuff.
Yeah.
And that was my thing, I guess. But probably, launching point to my, my career that I chose to do was that I already had a fascination. Actually, one of the things I wanted to do as a child was become a stuntman.
Yeah.
And it's because of movies like that.
Right.
And because of watching that stuff. Like, I could do that.
Yeah.
I could jump off that building.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Let me do it. That's what started it all.
Yeah.
Watched a couple of like old 70s documentaries about daredevils and stuntmen. What I found interesting was like a lot of what sparked people's interest in it was Houdini in the 20s, I believe. And he would be like upside down and have to get out of a straitjacket or go underwater and have to get out of a tank. And now he did also a lot of magic, I believe.
Yeah.
Illusion, but he was also escaping out of those straitjackets or keeping keys in his mouth or whatever to get out of things, and that was all real.
Yeah.
And then some of the older Daredevil stuff I saw was a motorcycle jumps over a car hood or like jumps off of a 2-foot ramp through a pallet that's on fire. I saw a guy on the hood of like an old car with a helmet on, and they drove through like a wall. And it was a lot of little stuff like that. And then not until like the 80s, late 80s was like Evel Knievel doing massive jumps. And
My hero.
Yeah. And these guys it would always be add another car or put something on fire there, or take the car out, put a couple of buses in. And it wasn't until then, and originally they were doing a lot of like fair shows, like you'd see a demo derby or a drag race, and then your local stuntman would come out and do some stuff.
Yeah.
And then the Evel Knievels and stuff like that would start to take over arenas. There was a guy I looked up, and he was the first guy to start jumping trucks.
Yeah.
At one time, everybody was only jumping motorcycles, maybe some cars. But everybody said you can't jump a truck. And Chuck Strange was his Daredevil name, and he was the first to jump trucks. And I was trying to really stay away from like the failures of Daredevils,
Right.
but this guy's failure was like in the Houston Astrodome in 1978. He was going to do a jump, and his suspension broke on his truck. And he went windshield first into the landing ramp.
Ooh.
And now Evel Knievel would always have a van at the end of his jump so that if he missed, it wouldn't cut him in half. But this guy did not. And so he went windshield first. It broke his nose, both his elbows. His bones were sticking out of his arms. And he did recover and start jumping again. His goals were to jump a semi-truck, a diesel truck.
Yeah.
And I did believe I saw a family of Daredevils did a diesel truck jump, and I'm sure plenty of people have now that it's maybe a little bit easier to do. But that was one guy. His fail was so graphic that I would have thought he was dead. And to see that live in the Houston Astrodome, thousands of people,
Right.
Yeah.
man,
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It goes to like the point where is Daredevil for those things you mentioned, the dopamine, the release, the adrenaline, the high. Where is that, and where's that line at where it just gets into, pushing that envelope that puts you in a place,
Reckless behavior.
a reckless behavior place. As a military free fall jumper, there was a lot of my friends that I jumped with in the military that spun off and started jumping, civilian jumps. And I never got into it. I was very much a part of that structure type of jumping and stuff like that. That's not to mean to say I wasn't putting myself in harm's way. I mean, obviously, every time I step out of an airplane, I'm putting my life in my hands. But these guys are taking it to another level, right?
Yeah.
Like jumping smaller parachutes and base jumping off of the sides of mountains and off bridges.
Yeah.
And these were friends of mine, that would get into that stuff. And so I was always like on the fence. Do I want to cross that line? Do I want to get into that? The saving grace for me was that I'd already had children and I had kids and stuff like that. And I already felt like my job was already dangerous enough.
Yeah.
These guys were like single guys. They were usually younger and they were like, let's take this to another level.
Yeah.
So like I said, what's the line? Where's that line at?
Well, and consider...
I was happy with what I was doing.
Yeah.
It was fine.
Yeah.
It was enough.
Consider the effect, you're pushing yourself and your dopamine hits to the limit. Evel Knievel and this Chuck Strange filling the Houston Astrodome with thousands of people, they're all getting a hit of that rush.
Yeah.
And maybe not to say, I mean, I'm sure it's some sort of bell curve of people who are out there wanting to maybe see him fail, wanting to actually see him make it, and they're all getting a rush at every bit.
That's guaranteed. There's some that are wanting to see him fail. It's unfortunate human nature, but it is what it is.
Or maybe even like just to be there if he does.
Good point.
To see the one that they don't make. I don't know.
Right.
That's a weird human nature thing. Just like this happened to push the limits of dopamine rushes, base jumping, bungee jumping.
And I'll tell you this, and I guarantee you Dave can back me up. I don't know who was there when you made that tandem jump, but when you got done and the rush was in you and it was pumping and this and that, I'm sure you thought, man, I wish my family could have seen that. Man, I wish somebody in your life that you wish could have seen that.
Well,
and that goes to your point. Now these guys are getting that from all these people.
Yeah.
But, we were doing it in front of a limited amount of
But it's also,
people,
you get a big rush. And, I didn't even really know the guy I was hooked to, but I, gave him a hug and I high-fived this other guy. I'm like, fuck yeah.
Good job.
Let's do that again. Pack it up. Let's go.
Good job. Yeah, and that's what it was. And that's funny you said that because that's that first jump that I described in Lakehurst, New Jersey, first time on a helicopter and I'm jumping out of it.
Yeah.
Hit the ground immediately. Let's go back up again.
Yeah.
Let's go again. But we couldn't. We were only doing that one. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
What a letdown. I'm ready to go right now.
Let's do it again.
Let's go. It plays a big role in these people that make these decisions to do that.
Yeah, and some of the other older types of Daredevils, one I thought was funny was, and it's kind of almost a trope, is going over Niagara Falls in a bucket.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I think I might want to do that.
Yeah, I'm sure they don't allow you to do it anymore,
No,
right?
I'm sure.
Yeah, it's guerrilla.
Oh, okay.
You have to keep
Do it
everything
way
secret
upstream.
and then throw it in there and then get in and then just go.
And I saw a guy, he got into some sort of big metal contraption. It wasn't a barrel, but it was like some sort of tank.
Yeah.
And he went over and he took a turtle with him for some reason.
Okay.
I don't know why that was.
I had an interesting one, a Hal Needham, who was said to be the highest paid stuntman in the world. And he started out as a paratrooper in the Army. And then he was in 1,500 different TV episodes and 310 feature films. Wow. He'd broken 56 bones, his back twice, he punctured a lung, and knocked out a few teeth. But he's best known for writing and directing Smokey and the Bandit.
Oh yeah.
Whoa.
There you go.
Yeah.
Writing and directing.
Yep. Wow. Because he wrote it and then he gave it to Burt Reynolds, and Burt's like, "Hey, you want to direct it?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll do that." And he also was involved in making a lot of stunt equipment, like to be able to flip a car. Before, you'd have to hit this like half ramp and get the car to flip. He invented this cannon that they could hide under a car, and it would shoot and like flip the car over that way. And the first time he tested it, he just had like one pack in there, and it just like lifted it about like 6 inches. And he's like, "Well, we got to go for it." So he double loaded it, and it shot him 30 feet in the air. And he spun and came down, and he like couldn't breathe and had to crawl out of the back window. And that's when he punctured his lung. And he had to get some other guy to actually do the trick for the movie because he had to go to the hospital.
So he didn't account for that impact.
Right. While he was filming the bridge of Remagen, Remagen, in Czechoslovakia.
Remagen?
Ramagan?
Maybe?
Yeah, the bridge of Ramagan. He nearly got his head taken off by a tank.
Oh.
Because he was supposed to run in front of the barrel, and after he passed it, they were going to shoot it. But there was an inexperienced guy, and so when he was running past it, he got hit with that muzzle flash, and it tore his helmet off and sent him flying, and like burst his eardrums. He had to use hearing aids after that. But then while they were there in Czechoslovakia, Russians invaded.
Oh no.
Yeah, and so he had to do a real life like backwoods escape, and they had to use like motorbikes and hot wire trucks, and then the whole cast and crew had to like sneak into the U.S. embassy.
Oh,
wow.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Bad timing.
Right. And he also took a souped up ambulance and did the Cannonball Run from like
Another great movie.
New York to California.
L.A.
Yep.
maybe.
Yeah, in L.A. And he did it in real life. And then from that experience, he created the movie Cannonball Run.
He created the movie.
Yeah, he directed
Damn.
that movie.
That's cool.
But he lived it first.
Right. Yeah, he did it
my
first.
gosh.
What's-
You never seen that,
I've
Matt?
never seen Cannonball Run.
Oh.
Dave is the movie guy around here.
You gotta see it.
What's the premise behind it? Is he running from the cops or something?
No. In the movie, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but in the movie they're doing it, it's a race for money.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's a
okay.
purse. There's a
Okay.
purse involved.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. So you gotta try to beat the police, beat the law, beat
Everybody else.
and
that's
beat everybody
also
else
doing it.
that's doing it, and there's no holds barred, race that goes.
Yeah. Like, have you ever
Reminds
seen
me of Death Race.
or like
Yeah.
Rat Race? You ever
Rat
seen-
Race. Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing as that.
Okay.
Or it's a mad world.
Yes.
Another
we
one.
just watched that.
Yeah, about like racing to go get money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is just cross country, and you have a bunch of different characters,
Yeah.
that have their own background. And
Yeah.
why they do what they do. They're all mostly rich themselves.
Yeah.
Then you got the underdogs that need the money.
Yeah.
So there you have it.
I was doing the research. I saw a couple of videos that were like talking about a group of people, and this group had like a lady that would ride a motorcycle through burning boards, and a guy that would just blow himself up. He would sit on 6 sticks of dynamite and blow himself up, and he survived every time.
I saw a lady do that at a River Bandits game.
Really?
Yeah, the after show, she was called the Exploding Lady, and she fit herself into a styrofoam cooler and blew it up, and then stood up and was like, woo, and waved to everybody.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then there was another guy that would just let a truck drive over him.
Oh.
He had like a board, and the truck would drive over this board. But I'm like, maybe I'm a little bit of a daredevil.
You are.
I breathe fire, lay on beds of nails.
Anybody who chooses to breathe fire,
Right.
certainly a
I-
daredevil in my opinion.
I think I'm out of that one. If you can't see my face on the video, but I'm pretty burnt up from the last couple of tries.
You did say you were going to bring it up again.
Yeah.
Now that you have.
Well, you look like a daredevil.
Yeah.
You jumped an
Cool scars.
electric bike.
Yeah, jumped it.
Yeah. Breathed some fire.
Breathe some fire that didn't go too well.
Hey,
Paid
some you win
price.
some, you lose some.
You do. And the funny thing is like, I'll even ask you, and those people that, let's say the guy who decides to have a car drive over him,
Right.
at what point in his life does he decide, you know what? I think a car can drive over me.
Yeah.
I think I can survive that. And I guess it goes back to my jumping. I guess I can survive 13,000 feet, where everybody tells me I'd never jump out of a perfectly good airplane. Well, I can, and I did.
Yeah.
And I don't know what made me do it, but I just did it. But for you as a flamethrower, like what gave you that motivation to say I'm going to put this, flammable liquid in my mouth,
Right. And blow it onto a flame.
and blow it onto a flame and make a cool fire?
Well, I can't lie. The reason I got into the sideshow business was to perform, to be on stage, and to entertain people.
And there was your dopamine.
Yeah, always had just a huge thirst for attention.
Yeah.
And at the bar, everywhere I went. And so when I had the opportunity to learn, I was like, damn, this will give me a couple of laughs. This will get me, a little bit of that dopamine hit of people being impressed with something I can do.
Yeah.
And I got to believe that that's why, a guy would let somebody drive a car over him.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, that had to be that same mentality of, I know I can do this.
Yeah.
And you know what? Nobody's going to stop me.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to do it.
I've been cliff jumping before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well,
And
how have we gotten this deep into the episode? You didn't bring this up, Dave.
Wow.
well,
We got a Daredevil right
Oh
here.
my gosh.
but my
Right
thing was
here.
like, I'll go. I just don't want to be the first one. Like, let
Yeah.
me see someone do it. Show me they're okay, and then sure, I'll jump off there.
I got a story. I went rappelling one time as a 12-year-old kid. I got all the way up there, chickened out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Went all the way back down. Then the last person went down, and they were like, all right, and anybody else? I was like, fuck it. I'm going to go do it. I went back up there, and I rappelled down that cliff.
Attaboy.
There you go.
Yeah.
Attaboy.
And it's okay. It's okay to decide you don't want to do something, but you know what? You can always do it again.
At
Yeah.
12, that makes sense. I had guys that I was training rappelling, off of 30-foot towers, and then ultimately we would rappel 30 to 60 to 90 feet out of helicopters. And you had guys and females that would get a certain height, get up there, and they're not. I'm good. I ain't doing it. And this is in the military.
What happens
These
to
are
you in
grown-ups.
the military if you?
These are grown
you
people.
can't do
You were
it?
12.
Yeah. What happens to the military if you're like, nah, I'm good?
You're gonna go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's no.
Or
you think you can stop, but you can't.
Yeah.
when I was in boot camp, there's a water training section of it, and there's a high dive. You have to
Yep.
jump off.
Go
and this one guy
underwater
just wouldn't jump for anything. He even got the senior drill instructor up there, and the drill instructor, okay, we're gonna go on 3. The drill instructor jumped, looks up, and the kid's still up there, and he's looking like a drowned rat. And he had to go to the next platoon coming up because he couldn't pass, and we had to keep moving. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like a 30-foot tower. If I'm
yeah,
not
it's pretty
correct.
tall. Yeah,
It's like 30 feet.
Yeah.
So if you were, not doing what you're taught, which is to hold yourself in tight,
yeah. If you
And
start,
then
if you flail or
if
anything,
you flail, so that's about 30 feet's about 2 or 3 waiver. Like
yeah.
oh shit, boom, now you're in the water. Yeah, that's
Or
about that far.
one of those where you hold your breath when you jump, and about the time you hit the water, you're like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Too far, dude. You can't hold it
yeah.
that soon.
But we had some SEALs there, and the guy showed us. He jumped off the tower, but he had his hands tied behind his back and his feet tied,
yeah,
and he jumped off, hit the bottom, bounced up, grabbed air, and then bounced all the way down to the shallow end and got himself out.
they do that in training for drown proofing. They are
Yeah.
not drown proofing, but they do a actual training in their buds training
Yeah,
where they go hands tied, feet tied,
learn to be calm
and learn to be calm and hold and you can only come up for your breath, get back
yeah.
down.
And he was like, I think you let the air out and you sink.
Yeah,
And then you kick off the bottom, take
Yep.
a deep breath, let the air out, sink, kick off
Absolutely.
the bottom.
and they got to do that for so long
Yeah,
and repeatedly do that for like a long time.
right.
Yeah, I mean, you'd probably cartwheel out of an airplane now after all
Oh,
of your.
I did a lot of crazy stuff out of
Yeah, and so
I like backflipping,
Yeah.
barrel rolling. I got to jump out of a bomber, old school prop bomber, and go through the hellhole, climb down the hellhole, hang from the bottom of it with my body fully out of the aircraft, and then let go. Or climb to the back of the ramp, hold on to the deck rings at the back of the ramp,
Yeah,
let my body just hang out below me, and then as everybody jumped out, I just let go.
Yeah.
The Superman.
Going from
Crazy
that
stuff, yeah.
going from that, it's just a ride at Disneyland kid.
Just a ride at Disneyland.
To being able to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's what practice and patience will do for you.
Well, I was explaining to my son one time, I said, when you start something, anything that you start, anything, it doesn't have to be these Daredevil type of things.
Yeah.
You see it in a closer space, and this is all audio, but you have tunnel vision. You have, your vision is so small because it's so new and it's something that you've never done before.
Yeah.
Your clarity of what you're doing is not there yet. And in these types of things, like for me, free falling was, as time went on, then my vision became greater and greater and greater. And once that vision becomes wide open and I can see everything, now your limit becomes more.
Yeah.
Now I can push further and further and further
Right.
because my vision is more clear. And that comes from the comfort of doing it over and over and over again.
Thank you so much, Brian, for that great speech. And I think the time you spent here was great. I know you had talked about it earlier, and I wanted to touch base back on it. Dave, have you ever been to Hero Street?
No.
Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Well, it's in Silvis, Illinois.
Okay.
One of the smallest towns in the Quad Cities. I know, Brian, you kind of grew up in that area. Could you tell the audience just a little bit about Hero Street itself?
Absolutely, and Dave, that's not a surprise. There's actually a lot of folks in this area that don't know about Hero Street, and I grew up on the street, so that was
on Hero Street itself.
I grew up on Hero Street, yes, sir. And so just a quick brief. You had Mexican immigrants back during the Mexican Revolution that migrated into America due to the Mexican Revolution. They were, these are my ancestors that worked land. They were land workers, and maybe some of them had maybe some small businesses, but for the most part, they were land workers.
Okay.
And the destruction of the war in Mexico obviously eliminated their jobs. So now they eliminated their way of life. And word got back or got down to Mexico from the Midwest area, from Kansas, from Iowa, from Illinois, that there was work on the railroad. So a lot of the migration into America was for work on the railroad. Mm-hmm. So you're talking late 1800s. And in fact, my grandma's, she's 99, so she was born in 1920, 21, whatever. But her dad and then my great grandparents, they came from Mexico. So what they did was they made their way into my particular ancestry, and there's more throughout the Quad Cities, but my story is those that made their way into the Rock Island Line's railroad yard in Silvis, Illinois, which was a repair facility. Has one of the only rotating turnstile. Yeah, there's only so many of those in the country.
Yeah, for trains.
For trains, and we have one right here.
That's cool.
That's cool. I didn't even know about that.
Yes, sir. And so when these migrants arrived, they got the jobs, they got work, but they had no place to house them. So they lived in boxcars in the railroad yard. So imagine living in a boxcar on a day like we had the other day. 100 degrees out, you have no air, and then go to your coldest of winters, and you have no heat.
Right. So
this is how my family and others lived. Through that, they were told that by the city of Silvis that they needed to pay property taxes. And the only way for them to pay property taxes was to give them, places to build their homes. So one of those locations was what was then called 2nd Street, and then 3rd Street, 4th Street, 5th Street. All through those first early blocks of Silvis were Mexican immigrants that built their homes there. And in our case, they built the first Munoz home. My great-grandparents' home was built out of 2 boxcars used as the framework to build their homes. And even when you go to Hero Street today, if you take a good look and you look at the size of a house and imagine one boxcar or two boxcars side by side, those are your frameworks for some of them houses that are still in existence, including my great grandparents. So that's what they did. They made their way up that street. Well, at that time, it was a big giant hill that went down into this dirt, flat dirt area, which they made the street out of. And it was nothing but mud and dirt and mud, and that made 2nd Street. The hill was called Billy Goat Bluff because it was so steep at the time that you could only get a billy goat up it. Oh, right. That was the old saying. And at that time, so now you have like World War II breaks out, right? Just fast forwarding a little bit. Houses are there. They're living there, paying their property taxes, doing what's being asked of them, but still having a hard time being accepted, as a people.
Yeah. It was a hard time.
Yeah, very hard time. And so they World War II breaks out, and a lot of the kids from the street volunteered, not drafted, volunteered to enter into service because their theory was that we have made our way here, we have a way of life here, and we're going to fight for it. We're going to represent our families and our community, and we're going to give of ourselves to fight for it.
And it's hard for me to think that because there's so many more privileged people that won't do that kind of thing. Absolutely.
And I mean, it's sad to say, but it's true.
Yeah.
So they did. Of those gentlemen that volunteered during World War II, and then ultimately into Korea, so forward from World War II to Korea, 8 of those individuals didn't come back. On all 8 of them died with distinction, and they died in combat. And so they then were brought back home to what was just nothing but a muddy road. Couldn't even get the hearse, which back then was nothing but a wagon and a horse, pulling their bodies up the street. Imagine, you can't even get them up the street because the street's not paved.
Yeah.
So 2nd Street, Silvis, which is now Hero Street, was the only non-paved road.
Really?
In the city. And they couldn't get the city officials to pave this road. So imagine you have heroes that died with bronze stars in distinction and died in combat.
Yeah.
And gave of themselves. And you can't even get their body to their family.
Yeah.
Because the road is so bad.
Yeah.
So fast forward there was an advocate by the name of Joe Taranis, who was my great uncle, and he fought to get the recognition that the street deserved. For those 8 warriors, number 1, and for all of the volunteers. So it's been proven that we put more people in all of the wars than any block and a half street in the country.
Yes.
Pretty crazy. And but 8 of those were the ones that died with distinction, 6 in World War II and 2 in Korea. And the one in Korea was my great uncle Johnny Munoz. Okay. So he died in the Army. Can't remember the exact name of the battle. It just doesn't hit me right now. I apologize. But received a Bronze Star, obviously Purple Heart posthumously, and so very proud of that. And I'm one of 9 Munozes to have served from the street, including Johnny. So a lot of deep history, a lot of amazing stories, a lot of amazing community and family, and of course with the Mexican community, you have a lot of religion, a lot of things that brought these people together, and to fight through these things. And ultimately, the street was paved. There was a memorial park built in their honor, and in honor of all of us that served, and in honor of all that served.
Yeah.
That wasn't specific.
Yeah.
Right.
But we honored those particulars. But year after year, we honor Memorial Day and Veterans Day for all. I mean, we do understand we have a history, we have a story, and it's a great story. But it's really, at the end of the day, one story, one block throughout the country.
Yeah.
Many people have done this. Many people have sacrificed. Many people have given.
Right. One story of many.
One story of many. Families, families that lost loved ones for those same types of scenarios. And we're a country built of immigrants, let's face it. And that's just one great story, and I just happen to be living there.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I remember being a kid, and my stomping grounds was East Moline, just neighboring Silvis, and walking down the street in the middle of the night, and the beautiful memorial that they built there always held a special place in my heart. I never went to the military or nothing, but it's a beautiful place to go and look.
Absolutely.
And if you're ever in the area, wherever you're listening to this podcast, whenever you're listening to this podcast, if you're in the area at any time, go check out Hero Street. It's a very important piece of history, I think.
Absolutely. Awesome. We've had the fortunate ability of some local folks that are building movies and tributes to the different families, to the story as a whole, and then to some of the individual families. In fact, I'm going to be doing some interviews next month, I believe, with this company that's getting some grant money, and they're doing a story specifically about my Uncle Johnny.
Okay.
So I'm going to be trying to contribute in that in some way, and then they're going to interview my 99-year-old grandmother, who was his sister-in-law, and try to get some story from her. So that'd be really cool.
Sounds cool.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Brian, for being here. Hopefully we can have you back.
I'd love to be back.
Yeah. Coming down to the lounge. Oh, for this being your first time, man, and doing the podcast, we want to give you a couple of our newest stickers.
Right.
Our Bender and Fry Futurama BRLP stickers.
Awesome.
Thank you. And again, so glad to have you, man.
Awesome. I appreciate the time, and I love you guys. You know that.
Love you too, Brian.
And
awesome.
Bring me back whenever you need some little interlude.
Yeah. Say goodbye to the people, Brian.
Goodbye, everyone, and be safe, and God bless.
That's it for the Blue Ribbon Lounge podcast for today. As always, Dave, it was a good one.
It was a good one. And remember, F. Scott Fitzgerald, the guy who wrote The Great Gatsby and Benjamin Button, is named after Francis Scott Key, one of his relatives. He wrote the Star Spangled Banner.
Be good to yourselves, guys.
Have a good one.
And bright stars through the perilous night, all the rapids we watch where the gallantly study.